I think that this video is going to perfectly tie in with the two others that I've recently just made. One of them is on productivity, and one of them is on why making money often feels evil to a lot of people. Let's tie it all in together now, and let's talk about why making money shouldn't be as hard for most people as it actually is. Obviously, most people understand what this is going to be about initially. Making money for people is hard. Most people's main source of income is going to be a 9 to 5 job or something along those lines. In that field, you work probably 40 hours a week or more, maybe a little bit less. You lose a lot of time, whether it be in transport, getting to and from work, whether it be in working or other activities along the road, such as losing more money when you have to buy lunchtime meals and stuff like that. But people often associate this with the way making money works. But what one has to do to massively increase their income is understand that time and money bear little to no relation at all. I said it in our previous video, but I'll mention the point once more. Somebody can make £100,000 in a day. If we're working for only £10 an hour or even £100 an hour, that is not going to be possible in a single day. So for that reason, we must understand that at the higher levels of society, we must separate this combination from our way of thinking. They just do not go together at these upper levels. So how do we do this, and how do we actually change it? Because there's one thing saying it, but how do we actually implement this? And it's not necessarily as hard as people think. But let's first talk about how we change our mindset towards it. Well, the first thing is, we need to understand what we want. Most people, when it comes to money, want one of two things. Usually it's more of it, but there's two reasons for that. The first one is because they want to have nicer stuff. They want a nicer car, a nicer house, a nicer lifestyle as a whole. Other times it's just because people want their time back. They're fine with driving a normal car and living in a normal house, and that's completely fine, but they just want to have their free time. I don't think anybody could fault either of these two things. It's kind of what life's all about in a way, especially to a lot of people. So with that being said, now that we understand why people do it, how do we actually go about changing our attitude to money and the way that we make it? Well, the first thing that we need to understand is, again, the time-money relationship isn't one that we should be focused on. We should be focused on better leveraging our time to make more. And unfortunately for most people, this is actually going to require a bigger time investment up front. We need to think about ways that we can make more passive income. And I know that people talk about that phrase a lot, but it does actually make sense. I know passive income as a whole is said something that might be a scam or something like that, but as a concept it's not. It's having more money flowing in for less work. So how do we do that? Again, once we do a few weeks of sacrifice, and once we understand that that's what's necessary, we can make more whilst doing less. On this channel I've documented my eBay journey, where I went from zero to about 10,000 a month on eBay. I'm not saying it was passive income, but it was about 2 hours a day. Now just imagine that, 2 hours a day for about 10,000 a month in revenue and maybe 3,000 a month in profit. That's not terrible, is it? 2 hours a day that was. Most people for 3,000 a month have to work 40 hours, which is obviously a big difference. That's almost all day compared to just a couple of hours of non-intense work. And the same can be true for a lot of stuff. We need to do things like this which make it easier to make more. The easiest way that we can start to do that is look at what skills we have or what skills we can readily learn. We often have skills available to us immediately. Some of us are great artists, some of us are great coders or software developers. It's a huge spectrum, and you get what I'm saying. These skills can be leveraged. You could start a YouTube channel like this one, which could create ad revenue. You could create a course where you sell stuff online. Or you could even look into starting in a new avenue. When I started reselling, it wasn't something that I was particularly passionate about or particularly knowledgeable about, but I understood that I needed to give it a go. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to make as much income in a short amount of time, which is obviously the main goal of my ambitions. I want to make as much as possible whilst doing as little as possible. So once I got my eBay business set up and started learning about it after a few weeks of genuinely intensely focusing on it, I was watching hours and hours worth of YouTube videos of people trying to tell me what to do to get more sales, how to get more views, how to get better reviews, all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, as a whole, it allowed me to compile a index of information, which has allowed me to grow that business and scale that business, and obviously provide videos on that subject which could present more income. It's about leveraging what we have and what we can learn and what we can very easily do. And then thinking about how we can scale this up. The trouble with most people who A, work and B, try to start businesses, they do it in fields where they are limited. And this is a big problem. If you're limited by time, there really is a finite amount of what you can earn. Let's say I wanted to start a construction company. It's a great business, but if I'm only one man laying bricks, there's only so long I can do it for per day. Whereas if I was somebody who was running an automated construction company, I could just continue to scale that up for weeks and weeks and months and years, and basically have to do no work after a while because all of the administration is going to be automated by somebody else. So it's about automating as much of the workload as possible, which again, when it comes to starting small businesses, AI has made this so much easier. It's about also talking about new streams of income where we have to work less to make more, and again, the internet has made this so much easier to research. But the big thing that we must separate in our minds again is the relationship between time and money. Because once we do that, we immediately limit how much we can make. And that's never going to be a good thing to do for people looking to expand their income. Now that we understand the change and the difference, how do we go about setting it in place? Well, like I said just a moment ago, it's going to require some hard work to begin with. Take a couple of weeks to look into different business ideas and think about what you can genuinely do and capitalize upon. Think about the long game rather than the short. Because whilst the time and money relationship can be quite obvious to begin with, we can then separate that at some points later down the path. Like I said with the construction company example, if I wanted to scale that company up, it could then be unlimited by time. It is not limited anymore. But in the early days, we must understand that if we're doing this on a basic level, it will be limited by time, which is not what we want. We must then think of the plan, the long-term plan, the plan which will benefit us the most, and the plan which will give us the best results. This is the more hard thing, and again, for everyone, it's going to be something different. Some people find their joy in doing stuff like making YouTube videos. Some people do crafts. Some people sell courses and information. Some people are, owners of businesses. That's all they do. They just own the business, whether it's in shares or whether it's in actually fully outright owning the company. That's what some people do. So for me to sit here and say this is the best business, that's the best business, would be quite unfair, because to some people it is, to some people it isn't. Everyone's got a different stance and stature on what will work and what won't, and a lot of it is based on trial and effort and error as well. If you find something that you're not too interested in, you're probably not going to put much effort in. If you don't put that much effort in, it's probably unlikely that you're going to succeed. So you must combine a little bit of interest. I'm not saying that you need to be amazingly passionate about it. I'm actually a big advocate of going for where the money is versus where the passion is for a lot of careers, and the reason for that is because if you can work only 2 hours a day and make enough money to have all of your time to yourself, why does the interest in it matter? But it can't bore you to death or make you completely unenthusiastic, or else you won't do it. But yes, set out with a plan, I think, and then work on growing that business. Make sure it's a business that's not ultimately limited by the amount of time you have, and if it is, think about ways that you can make it unrestricted by that. That's just what I'd do if I was looking to start out with a new business, but in the age that we're in right now, there's so many tools out there. This is just a really basic video talking about it, as I wanted to tie in the past 3 videos that we've made in this series. It's not that hard anymore to at least give it a go. It might be difficult to actually make a lot more income, but to give it a try is very easy. If you've got access to a laptop or a computer or even a phone and the internet, you can give it a try. A lot of people are scared to invest money anywhere. The term investment often sparks back ideas of the stock market and stuff like that. But investing is just a concept of putting our money somewhere and intending to get more money back. So investments can be anything. Now, stock investing may be one of the most common forms of investing, which is why I always say to people, have you ever thought about putting money into the stock market? And almost everybody that I ask says no. I say why, and they say, well, it's too risky. And that's exactly where the problem comes from. You see, when it comes to making money, more money than you do already, you have to sacrifice something. As a matter of fact, to make any money, it seems to be the case that you have to sacrifice something. If you work, you have to sacrifice your time. If you make money from investing, you have to sacrifice your money, or at least put it on the line. And that's the thing. The question is, what do we want to sacrifice? There's a whole matrix grid thing, where you can sell your time for money, you can sell your money for time, you can sell your money for money, and that's kind of what investing is all about, in my opinion. You sell money with the hopes of getting more money back, and as much as a weird concept as that sounds, it is kind of the basic principle of investing. And Unless we want to spend more time working, as in losing our time, investing our money into things is one of the best things that we can do. Now, again, like I said, there are multiple forms of investing. I invest in a few different ways. I've put money into the stock market in the past, but I've also invested money in running ads for my Shopify store, some of which have been successful, some not so much. I've invested money into different concepts of trying to open shops and sell things and all that kind of stuff. That is also an investment, just of a different sort. But if I wasn't willing to risk any capital, it would be quite hard to start a business successfully or to grow my money anymore. On this channel, I'm a big advocate of talking about low startup cost businesses. One of the main reasons for that is obviously because as young or new investors, we don't want to lose money that we don't have. And also it's because I want to make businesses and show businesses which somebody like me in the starting position that I was in 2, 3, 4 years ago could start now with very little money. So it is possible. However, these businesses often require us to sacrifice something else, and that's a topic for a completely different episode, but my point is the easiest way to make money is to often sacrifice our money or risk our money in some way. Now again, risk management's key. We shouldn't even be trying to risk more than we can lose. But when we think about a reasonable amount, this is why we don't make more money. Because we don't invest it. And again, the reason for that is because people often associate investment with risk. Inherently, investment does carry risk because you always have the capital that could be lost. With that being said though, we have to weigh up the potential for risk and ask what risk actually is. In my opinion, it's much more risky to have not tried than to have tried and lost. And obviously in the early days, it's going to be quite hard to manage that expectation. If we start our very first business and it fails and we lose a couple of hundred, we're probably going to be quite upset with that. But imagine when you get into the flow of it and this is just what you do, you just try to create new streams of income every single month. When you're in that position, starting up a new business for a couple of hundred isn't going to hurt that much because you make enough from your other streams of income and you understand how the process works. But until we get that ball rolling, it's going to be quite hard. So maybe one of the reasons why people don't make as much money as they like is because they don't take the money aside and take it for investing purposes. The minute people get a bonus or an extra pay rise, they think about what they can buy. Oftentimes it's stuff that they don't need. But imagine if we put that away to the side for a couple of weeks, saved it up, and then tried to invest it into something. Now what that something is definitely a difficult question to ask, but it is possible that we could invest in something which could increase our wealth and our income, creating a more sustainable financial future for ourselves. I have and I want to create even more videos on low startup cost businesses, but these are generally speaking base tier businesses. I'm going to talk more about this concept in a far future episode. I think there really is tiers to business in terms of you have your base tier businesses where you don't have to risk much cash, but you do have to do quite a bit of work. Then you have the ones where you have to risk a bit of cash and do a bit of work. Then you have the ones where oftentimes you have to invest a lot of cash, but you don't have to do barely any work. And these are of course the kind of god tier businesses because you can make so much more money, but again the consequence of that is you have to risk that money in the first place. And if you don't have it, it's going to be quite tough. But it goes back to the whole concept of risk and reward. We have to risk to get reward. That's what people don't seem to understand. But when we weigh up our costs, we can often cut back on a lot of stuff. I do this now and again just to see where I'm at, to see what I spend on, how much I spend, and all that kind of stuff. And when you see it, there's a lot of stuff that you can cut back on if you needed to. So when people often say they don't have the capital to invest, if you were to reduce your money by an extra £100 a month, that gives you £1,200 a year. Think about what you could do with that. You could very easily start a business or invest that into the stock market, which is basically the easiest model of investing that you can do. Like if you were to invest £1,200 into the stock market over 10 years, how much would you have? And by the way, that doesn't even account for potential capital gains due to return on investment. You see what I'm saying here? You can build capital and build wealth a lot easier if you understand how it works. But from a young age, we're told about the fact that debt is bad, investing can be risky and all that kind of stuff. When in actuality, these concepts are not necessarily true. Debt can be bad if we have debt in the wrong fields, and investing can be bad if we make terrible and uneducated investments. But if we take the time to learn and don't just go head deep in, we can very easily find things which can make us money. Like, I went to the thrift store the other day. We'll call this an investment of sorts, right? I was able to find 3 or 4 items for only £50. These 3 or 4 items I could then sell for about £120 online. That seems like a pretty decent investment to me. But when people say, oh, I need to invest £100, it sounds very risky because people immediately want to associate the potential for investment with the potential for loss. But why do people not associate the potential for investment with the potential for gain? This is the big problem. I think it goes into the way that we're educated from a very young age, and we're taught about how basically we need to save the money that we have. But as we've outlined multiple times on this channel before, imagine if you were to even make 100,000 a year and save every single penny. You're still not going to become a multi-millionaire by the end of the decade, even if you could save every single penny of that very high salary. It's just not going to be possible. So clearly, for people to amass hundreds of millions or billions or even single millions in a lifetime and have money to invest and have money to put in all these nice assets, they must have done something very differently. And when we actually think about what could that be, we start to break the mental barrier in our own heads. This creates a new field of thought, which allows us to experiment with new ideas. So what I'd say for anybody really trying to start into the world of business, first things first, try get yourself on a base tier business like I outlined before. You might have to do a lot more work for it, but oftentimes you don't need to put in much in terms of startup capital. These are the businesses that I would recommend for beginners, because that way you can build a financial base. Let's say I make a new business selling stuff online like I just said, and I was to make £1,000 in the first couple of months. I then have £1,000 worth of free capital, and even if I was to lose every penny of that, I've technically not risked anything because it's only just appreciation on the time that I've put in. Now I've built a base and I can move on to more businesses because I have more capital to put in other places, whether it's put money into marketing this business and grow it even more, whether it's put money into investing in this business and get people to run it so it's automated, I can go on to move into the second business. I'd get that first one built up, that first stream of income, then I'd try and move into the next one, and the next one, and the next one, to the point where we can have a few things on the go and make more and more, and ultimately expand our portfolio of businesses and subsequently our income every single month. But it all starts with a very basic mind change. But these are the things that we can do, and these are the kind of things that I want to talk about on this channel. So I hope these videos are quite useful to you and quite informative. These are just the things that I've learned. I've lost a lot of money this year and last year and the year before. I've lost in a lot of situations in the past couple of years. But I've also had massive wins. The massive wins though would not have ever come if I didn't want to risk time or money. These are just part of the process that you have to basically do if you want to give it a go. You need to make sure you're aware of the risk and do appropriate risk management, but risk is not necessarily bad. If we think about money, time and investing in a different way, we can get much better results, but this is again an entire mind shift that we have to do as soon as possible. But like I said, once we get the ball rolling, we'll see how easy it is. It's just about actually getting on that road, which is often the most difficult stage. With that being said though, thank you for watching this video. If you find it useful, don't forget to like it and subscribe. This is of course just my opinion. But again, I hope it was useful to you guys. It's just the way that I see things and what I've learnt. But it's something I often see. People talking about wanting to increase their income, their wealth, and never really want to invest because it presents the potential for risk. But like I say, the more risk that I see, the higher risk scenario that I see, is never having tried to do something new and knowing that you could have done. Then sit there saying, well, yeah, it was a good idea, but I still didn't follow it. That's all I'm saying for this one. But thank you for watching until the very end. Please do share it with somebody who might need it, and again, do subscribe if this is the sort of content you enjoy. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in our next video, which will be coming out, of course, again tomorrow. See you soon.